Shalom, and welcome to What the Watchman Sees, a ministry that will sift through all of the social media noise to show you news of importance from the Most High's perspective. As watchmen, we are here both to warn of dangers and give biblical answers for dwelling in the secret place of the Most High during these times of confusion. Tell your family and friends to like, share, and subscribe as we delve into what Yahweh has for us, the apple of His eye. Let's get to work. Shalom, everyone. We are going to continue with our study/meditation during this calendar year. We're still focusing on tracking the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. And as we drill down, we're now looking at that thought from the position of tracking the seeds of Esau and the seed of Jacob, the seeds of Esau and Jacob. So we, in the last several weeks, have been talking about Esau specifically. And for this particular introductory study to Jacob, we're going to start with looking at the seed of Jacob and how that is tracked. As we begin, we're always operating under the same two scriptures, 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, which encourages us to study, to show ourselves approved unto the Most High, workmen who need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. And also in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16, all scripture that is inspired by the Most High is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the person of the Most High may be complete, thoroughly furnished to every good work. So as we allow those scriptures to guide our study, we have been in a year-long study, and we're in the middle of that year. Actually, we just left the equinox. We just left the longest day of the year. And if you remember, we're not going to talk a lot about that during this session, but if you remember, the Most High put the sun, the moon, and the stars in the heavens, purposefully to give us a sense of where we are at this particular point in time. Okay, so let's move into our study and reflection on tracking the seed of Jacob. We left off talking about the seed of Edom, or the seed of Esau, and how Esau is being seen and tracked up through present day. I'm going to suggest to you that when we look at history, when we look at historical information, psychological information, or philosophical information, in our day and time, information could also be called data. Okay, so in other words, everything that we have when it comes to how we learn has to do with some sort of data that is given to us, some sort of information. What we have not been told is that every bit of information that we are given is already curated for us, and there's a narrative that represents how it's been curated. Now, what I mean by that is most of what we get is not neutral information. It is information that someone else has compiled, and most of the time when someone else compiles the information, they have an agenda for the information. Okay, so let's take our educational system. The agenda of those who created the educational system was for us to think that education was about learning. And in one sense, it is about learning, but education is about learning what those who control the society want you to learn. So from kindergarten, or I would even say preschool, up through the most advanced terminal degree, all of the information that people have received has been given for them for that purpose, so that those who rule and control the society can continue to rule and control the society. What they tell you, though, is that education is its own rewards. Just knowing things is admirable, but that's not how it works. That's not what we're trained to do in school. We're trained to actually, we're trained for socialization, to be a part of this conglomerate that there are specific people and institutions in charge of. Okay. So anything that we're given, any information that we're given, is given underneath those circumstances. I could almost say, especially including religion in this system. Now, there's another word for all of that, so that in our study we can understand why this is being presented at the outset of tracking the seed of Jacob. We live in Babylon, and I'm not talking about a geographical location. I'm talking about the system that this world currently operates under is a Babylonian system. Another way of saying that is, we're living in a system that is built and based upon the kingdom of darkness, not the kingdom of light. What's happening now is that the kingdom of darkness's days are coming to an end, and therefore those who are in charge of this kingdom know that, and they are actively operating to make sure that that does not happen. That's what's going on in 2024. So whoever is in charge of the world right now belongs to the Babylonian system, and that includes this country, but it's not exclusive to this country. That's the premise for our study, because there is another parallel purpose for information, and that is so that we can know God and our relationship to him. And there is a whole world that will open up if that becomes our focus. One way or another, it's going to happen. Okay. So what he wants his people doing, who have already made the choice of deciding to follow the path that he has laid before us, our job is to get the word out that there are two kingdoms here. One of them is getting ready to fall, or is actually in the process of falling, but the other one is coming. And so those two kingdoms are represented by the seed of the serpent, the seed of the woman. And as we have gone through the study up to this point, now we also understand that Esau is a representative of the seed of the serpent. Jacob is a representative of the seed of the woman. So we should also track Esau and Jacob. So the last 3 or 4 weeks we have spent tracking the seed of Esau. Now we're going to track the seed of Jacob. But we left off in our last session with these Bible verses, and I would encourage you either to take a screenshot of them or whatever, but look these verses up, because this is what's happening today. Now, what we've been told, we've been given a couple of scriptures like Psalm 83, for instance, where it seems like what's going on in current events in 2024, going into 2025, the seed of the serpent needs to be identified. The seed of the woman needs to be identified, because they're both operating in full effect right now. Okay. So part of what the Most High wants his people to do is to be able to tell one from the other. And more importantly, to be able to understand our relationship as his seed. okay? Because that's part of this narrative. All right. So I won't say very much more about that, other than to say what we have been told by the so-called prophetic community, the charismatic community, the evangelical community, is that what is going on in the Middle East is is the fulfillment of prophecy, and it started in 1948. I'm submitting to you that that is not the case. I won't say there isn't some truth in it, but the way that it's being narrated to you, I'm suggesting there's another narrative. All right. The real narrative is in these verses here. Okay. Because that Balfour Declaration that was given in 1917 was given by people who either didn't believe in God at all or were outright Satanist. Okay, and it was that energy that led into the Declaration of a Nation in 1948. I'm going to spend time talking about this whole slide, but not at this session, because this is the ending of Esau's tracking, and I really want to introduce us to Jacob's tracking. As I've been saying, every bit of information that you get is curated and it's narrated by someone. In other words, there is an agenda behind every narration. There is an agenda behind every bit of information. So this notion about neutral information is a false notion. There's no such thing as neutrality when it comes to the gathering of information. Somebody put it together. And that's important for us as Christians or believers to understand, because many non-believers are criticizing that fact. But the bottom line is that everybody does that. That's how all information is processed. It has to be put in a way that people can grasp what the concepts are, and the people who put it together have an agenda. Every time they have an agenda. Okay, so when people then will look at the Bible and say, we don't have to listen to the Bible because human beings wrote it. Of course, human beings wrote it. Who else is going to write it? And of course, those human beings had an agenda. That there's no question about that. And that's why if you hear what we say at the beginning, at the outset of each one of these lessons, all scripture that is inspired by God. In other words, there's lots of writing, and there are lots of interpretations. There are lots of manifestations of what men think about eternal things, right? As they manifest themselves in a material world. But there are also men who have decided, I want to mirror and be the mouthpiece for the source of these ideas, which comes from heaven. And that's why the scriptures say all scripture that is inspired by God, all writings that are inspired by God are profitable for teaching, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, etc., etc. Okay, so the Most High has put because we live in a world that's gender based, and we have to understand that a lot of our language is based on that. But everybody knows that the Most High is not a male. The Most High God is God. All right. So can we stop pretending that we don't know that? All right. On both sides, can we stop that? That's a foolish conversation. But in any case, I digress. My point is, on this slide and on all the teachings that have happened from this teacher during this year, I have an agenda. Okay. Now, my agenda I'm submitting to you was given to me by my desire to want to know the truth from the Most High's perspective, which is why The introduction says that. Okay. I want to know what the creator of the universe wants me to know. And what he wants me to know, he then tells me, give this that you wanted to know to other people who might want to know the same thing that you're asking about. That's what these presentations are. And so and that was the only stipulation that I brought to the table. When I got to the table, what I found out is that the people of the book are my people. Once I began to look at that, and I looked at it at first in a very skeptical way, or actually a very cynical way, saying that couldn't possibly be the case. But the more I meditated, the more I studied, the more that message began to solidify in my soul. And so that's important for you to understand, because I have some things on the screen now that were written or presented by other people who went through a similar process that I just explained to you. But they definitely have a perspective that is being promoted. And that perspective is in these YouTube videos. So I would strongly encourage those of you who desire to know how these conclusions have been reached. We're no longer at a point where that information isn't readily available, and that's what these things represent. So we were tracking the Edomites, or the descendants of Esau. So there's one on who are the Edomites today, from Esau to Zionism. There's Gog and Magog and Esau. We've been hearing about the Gog and Magog dynamic. There's one on that, the Northern Kingdom and the Northern Kingdom. Again, just straight up Jacob and Esau, the hidden truth. There's one on that. And then finally, how did we get here? And the we being those who, so everybody is on the same page, those who are labeled as either Black or African Americans in United States of America, the Caribbean, South America. How did we get here? From Jerusalem to slavery. Okay, so if you have an interest or are inclined to do so, I would encourage you to look those up. Now, there are a couple of There were a few other books. One written by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, They Came Before Columbus. Another one, The Wars of the Jews, books 5 and 6 by Josephus, a Jewish historian. A study of the ancient Edomites, an examination of the civilization of the nation of Edom and its relationship to Israel. I think this is a graduate either paper, or it might even be a thesis from that Syracuse University. It was written in 1969. The Jews of Africa, Sidney Mendelssohn. He wrote that in 1920. The Jews, A Study of Race and Environment, Maurice Fishberg. And then finally, The 13th Tribe, Arthur Kessler. A number of these individuals are what we would call Jewish individuals. All right. So these are not the rantings people who don't have some sort of relationship to that moniker. All right. But I'm going to just keep going. So this introductory lesson is about how the seed of Jacob is being tracked. There are markers. Another word for marker would be a sign. Okay. If you remember, the Most High said in Genesis that the sun and the moon and the stars are actually in part of their purpose in the cosmos is for signs, for seasons, for days, and for years. So we can tell what's going on in our own lives and in our own time just by looking up, which is that might be a revelation to somebody. But the signs are already there. Well, a sign is a marker. Everybody knows when you're driving from one city to another, right before you get to your destination, or even in between your where you are and your destination, there will be signs with the name of your destination on them, telling you there's 100 miles to go to your destination, 50 miles, 10 miles, and then there's that final sign that says, "Here's your destination." Okay, those are signs; those are markers, if you will, to give us the understanding that this where you're trying to go now, this is how far away from it you are, and now you're right upon it. You should turn off here. Okay, the sign isn't the place. The sign points to where the place is. The marker isn't Jacob. The marker is an indicator of who and where Jacob is, since we're talking about tracking the seed of Jacob. Okay, so what are some of the markers? Jacob, one of the signs of being Jacob, one of the seed of the woman, is that he is blessed by the Most High, and he didn't have anything to do with it. If you read Genesis chapter 25, starting at verse 22, it's an account of Abraham's son, Isaac, and his wife, Rebekah, when they had their two sons. Okay. And when Rebekah was pregnant, she asked the Most High because she was having problems. She went to the Most High and says, "Why am I this way?" And what the Most High told her was, "There are two nations in your womb." He was in essence telling her that that strife that's going on in your belly, that's because there's two nations there. One of them is stronger than the other one. One of them is going to rule over the other one, and they're always going to be fighting. So that's a sign of those two twins. The sign of one of those twins was, well, actually, with both of those twins, is the father made that determination and they hadn't even come out of the womb yet. So, despite what they individually might have been doing or thinking, or what their personalities were, they had already been marked. Now, there, as we go through these lessons, we're going to unpack that, because the outset that might seem like it's unfair, but it's not, because the Most High knows the end from the beginning. He knows what they're going to do even before they do it. So a lot of when we hear this idea that the Most High has blessed Jacob despite what Jacob has done or who Jacob is, the Most High knows what he's doing, and the Most High knows what Jacob is going to do. So part of that is a prophetic utterance over that child, or because we already looked at his brother, but it's despite what he may be doing at that particular point in time, if that makes sense. All right. So the first marker is he's blessed by the Most High despite himself. The next marker of Jacob is that from the womb, he has had a troubled family life. Jacob had a troubled family life from the time he came out of the womb till the time he went into the ground. And you can see that over and over and over again. When he wasn't at odds with his brother, he was at odds with his father-in-law. And so what his father-in-law did was trick him into having to marry the father-in-law's two daughters, even though Jacob only wanted one of them. He actually had to marry both of them. And when he did that, that's automatic strife. And so each one of those women had their own children, and their handmaids had children. So he's got 12 sons and a daughter that has been recorded, and they're always fighting. There's always trouble in that family. That's the family that ends up killing their wanting to kill their brother Joseph, who then had to go into Egypt, be a slave, and be made free so that he could save his brothers who tried to kill him. All of that is part and parcel of the family of Jacob. And that, so Jacob actually lives his entire life in a troubled family. That's one of the markers of Jacob, of Yasharel, because don't forget, Jacob's name was changed to Israel or Yasharel. If you think about it, that's who we are. We have had trouble in our families from day one up to the present time. We think it's some genetic defect. I don't know what we think. But the truth is, it's one of the markers of the people of the Most High. To continue, those who most closely resemble the blessings and cursings of Deuteronomy 28 and 30. This goes back to who's doing the narration, okay? When we let the Father do the narration, he tells us who his people are. He tells us what our positive traits are. He tells us what our negative traits are. He tells us the result of our positive responses. He tells us the results of our negative responses. And when we read Deuteronomy 28 and Deuteronomy 30, it gives us a very clear indication of who his people are. And we can see who his people are once we read. Now, it's not just Deuteronomy 28 and 30, because actually it's throughout the Tanakh. But these are passages that let us know specifically, you know who that is. And our enemies know who that is too. That's why they continue to move us away from those scriptures. Another marker of Jacob or Yasharel is that he is the salt and the light to the people, regardless of where he is. The Most High's people draw other people to them, and the other people that are drawn to them in positive ways. This is one of the positive attributes. They don't even know why. Well, this is why, because we're children of light. People are drawn to the light. We are the salt of the earth. See, Yeshua said that, but the people who teach us that don't understand who that is. That's the seed of Jacob. That's the seed of the woman. It's the seed of Jacob that's the salt and the light to the world and of the world. So what does salt do? Well, it makes things taste better, but it also preserves. So wherever our people are, you're going to find the people around us and the society that's around us prospering. How do you think the United States of America got to where it is? How do you think Egypt got to where they were when they were in their heyday? How do you, wherever we went, the Iberian Peninsula, South Africa, another example, Jamaica, another example, Brazil, another example. Wherever we go, wherever we are, we become the salt and the light that blesses those people. Now, the people hardly ever give us the credit for it because it's not in the interest of those who rule you. See, the rulers of this country already know what I'm telling you. They know how this country got to be where it is, and it has nothing to do with the so-called Judeo-Christian ethic. It has to do with the people that were brought here that know how to work and know how to critically analyze and have a compassion that they're willing to share with other people. Those are God's people. Okay, those are the people who are the salt and the light to those around them. And just like those around them are drawn, those who are of the seed of Esau also know who we are, by the way, and envy that they don't have what we have and they want it. So they figure, just like the people in the parable, not the parable, but the fairy tale of the goose that laid the golden egg, we're that goose, y'all. And those who are in control of the goose keep wanting to kill the goose to get all of the eggs out. It's insane. But that's what's going on. So yes, you can tell Jacob's seed and the seed of Jacob, because there are going to be people who hate Jacob's guts. They don't even know why. And so even in this culture, you'll find people saying, why do y'all hate us so much? This is why. This is why we're hated. We are humane. Everybody's not. Let me keep going. Another way of tracking the seed of Jacob, a promise of an eternal home on earth and throughout eternity. So that promise has remained with Jacob. It was given to Jacob. Jacob has land that belongs only to him, and that land is going to be cursed as long as we're not there, which is why you see what's going on in 2024 in the land that's called Israel right now. So yeah, there's not going to be peace over there until we get back. Jacob is the point of contact between heaven and earth. The Father has said that Jacob, not everybody, Jacob is the apple of his eye. Well, what does that mean? It means we reflect the nature of the Most High God. And when he looks into when he, with his eyes, look into our eyes, he's supposed to see himself. Everybody doesn't have that because everybody's not the point of contact between heaven and earth. We're the keepers of the seed of the woman. And what does that mean? It doesn't mean we because some people believe this. Like in Ethiopia, for instance, you know, that they're the ones they keep the traditions. The only certain people can go in. Supposedly, the Ark of the Covenant is there. All of that kind of stuff. I'm not speaking positively or negatively about it. I'm just saying that's not the idea of being the keeper of the seed. Being the keeper of the seed. See, the seed is a spiritual seed. That seed became flesh and dwelt among us. Jacob is the one who kept that seed until it was time for the seed to manifest himself. That's who we know as in English Jesus Christ is. That's Yeshua HaMashiach. So it was through Jacob that seed came. Operating, another marker of Jacob is operating in mercy, grace, and protection of the Most High. And this goes back, I won't spend a lot of time on this during this session, but let me be as clear as I can. As we speak, as this lesson is being delivered, Black people are being hunted down here in this area that I live. They're also being hunted in some of the the smaller communities in the place that I used to live in central Illinois. And if you start doing a scan of this country, Black people are being hunted, period. And law enforcement is a part of that, but law enforcement isn't the only vehicle for that. Now, why is that happening? It's happening because of what I had just said earlier. This is a satanic operation that we are having to deal with. Satan knows who the Most High's people are. Actually, he's been trying to kill us since we were loosed from his chattel slavery grip. So everything that's happened from that point to this point, there have always been people who want us dead. And again, many of them don't even know why. How would an 18-year-old know that? Now that gets into a whole nother issue, but because it's the young people that are hunting us, please understand, or people who would be considered middle-aged. Nobody wants to talk about that. But the Most High's people, it's time for us to say what's going on. We're being hunted. These are not isolated incidents. There are people, just like we were talking about before, who are on we haven't said it yet. So let me jump down. Because it's right underneath this bullet point. But let me finish this bullet point. Operating in the mercy, grace, and protection of Yah. So the enemy's desire for us is that we be destroyed completely. That's never going to happen. which is why the Most High doesn't want us as his people spending a lot of time being angry about other folks who are trying to kill us. That's what they do. And that's why he said, give me your anger. Okay. Give me your vengeance. Vengeance belongs to me. I'll repay. And he has, and he will. We don't always see it because we're not looking with his eyes, but he's been taking care of us since we got here, even though it was our own rebellion that has us here in the first place, i.e. Deuteronomy 28. So, but in the eyes of the Most High, we're still the apple of his eye. As much as people want to see us and see our demise and take our land and take our children, take our lives, he's not going to let that destroy his people. That's one of the markers. We tried to kill them and they're still here. Why is that? This is why. So since we can't, and he does not want us to have vengeance or take vengeance upon ourselves, because don't forget, Esau is the stronger one. We can't beat our brother up. He's stronger than we are. He'll always win in a fight. That's how come he came out first, because he was the stronger one. However, what we are to do, while the stronger one is trying to kill us, he wants us planning and he wants us building once we have planned. In other words, he wants to take our attention and place it a place that is completely different than where our enemies want to take us. They're always trying to entrap us or lure us into a trap so that they can slaughter us. That's what they do. And many times we fall into those traps and we do get slaughtered. But the Most High is saying, no, I don't want you to go into their trap. I want you to go in the opposite direction and do something completely different. While they're planning to kill, I want you to plan to build. That's what he wants his people doing right now, 2024. That's our job right now. So the first place that the building starts is in our own hearts and in our own families. And then that translates into our own communities. We take care of our babies. We educate our babies in the ways of the Most High. You see, there's a whole culture then begins to manifest itself. So he can throw all the guns in the pea shooters, because he's got the real guns. Okay. But the enemy can throw all the guns in the neighborhood that he wants. Our children, once we do what we're supposed to do, they won't even be interested in those guns. They won't even be interested in killing one another. They'll be interested in working with one another to build something. So that's one of the markings, the tracking as we track the seed of Jacob. And then finally, where is all of this going? It's going to the New Jerusalem. He wants us ready as that bride adorned for her husband. When John saw that New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven, it came down out of heaven because it's already in heaven. So he saw a physical depiction of what the Most High wants for us to do in the spirit first, because that's how it gets manifested on the earth. See, we're already in the kingdom of heaven. When that kingdom of heaven is manifested on the earth, that's the New Jerusalem coming down to the earth. So that's how we know who Jacob is. Jacob is a part of that. All of the things that we just talked about happen here. We're not supposed to wait until everybody dies off and then we're all in the spirit world doing whatever the spirits do. That's not the concept that the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches us that he's an on-time God. He's a right now God. He's the God of this age and the age to come. We need to recognize that. So that's where we'll stop the introduction. And this is the lesson that we're going to be chasing for the next few weeks, Father willing. Father, bless you and keep you. Father, make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. Father, lift up his countenance upon you and give you his shalom.